Hey there, everyone. So currently I am headed to the West Toronto Railpath. I'm taking the back entrance to Bloor station. You've probably never taken this entrance. I certainly haven't. And it's interesting. I'm kind of headed around some big high-rise developments, as you can see here and here. And those developments, one of them is the Crossways, the infamous Crossways, which blocked the tunnel between Bloor GO station and the TTC Dundas West station for the longest time. And then this other development is new. So supposedly there should be a tunnel being constructed. I believe maybe it's going to be on the original Crossways site, but they had to expropriate it. Anyways, we're going on a walk today. We're going to check out the West Toronto Railpath, and we're starting at Dundas West / Bloor station, depending on how you view these stations. So this is the kiss and ride loop for this station. There's no actual parking, just a kiss and ride, but you can see here the platforms for Bloor station on the GO and Up Express services. And it's looking pretty nice. This new development over here is absolutely gigantic. So pretty interesting to see that being constructed here as well. So let's head into the tunnels and head over to the West Toronto Railpath. Never gone this way, so it should be interesting. So I'm standing here next to the platforms for Bloor station. This track here is for the Milton line, and the track adjacent to that is for the Kitchener line. There's actually space here, I think, for a secondary Milton line track, and so potentially all-day two-way service could happen on the Milton line at this station. But there's not room for a platform, at least not in the station's current form. Probably where the tunnel, or where a walking connection could be, but the tunnel should probably come from down here. So yeah, I can imagine the tunnel connection would probably be around here. They do mention the TTC connection here. I haven't ever used this entrance before, as I said, but it seems like it's possibly the best option, actually. And this actually might be where the tunnel would go up here. I'm not 100% certain. You've got a blank wall here, so this is possible as well. Actually have a ticket counter here. Interesting. There's up to the GO platforms here. And it's actually quite an interesting little concourse in here. You've got the service desk over there, you've got an elevator here, stairs over here, and stairs over there as well. And then for the second platform, we've got the same sort of setup. And as you can see, the West Toronto Railpath is this way. So we will be heading this way. It says this way for the West Toronto Railpath. So part of the story here with the West Toronto Railpath and Bloor Station, which I'm standing in right now, is that you actually are eventually going to see another track right here. And that additional track is going to be really interesting because they're going to have to shift the West Toronto Railpath over, and it's tight. But interestingly, they've already placed the tactile panels on the edge of the platform, which seems very premature. Got a ramp here so we can take this down onto the West Toronto Railpath. So let's head down this way along the station, north towards DuPont Street and the CP Midtown line that I talked about in a recent video. We have a cyclist here. There's quite a mix of uses on this path. You can really see that there is not enough room currently with the way this fence is laid out to add that additional track here. I imagine the path actually doesn't have to move too much, at least here, because I think you have almost half as much room as you need between these two fences for that additional track. And the rail path is really wide here, so I actually think that's mostly fine. Over here we have some townhouses, and oh my goodness, I can only imagine how cool it would be to live right next to the rail line here. But I also imagine that this is incredibly expensive real estate, so unless I get a promotion on YouTube, I don't think I'm going to be moving here anytime soon. There's these steel signs on the rail path that are kind of cool that mark the different streets. So this one is Ernest Avenue. We have a little bit of a wall with some graffiti all over it, which is interesting. And even more interesting, you have these older industrial buildings over here that look super old, but I'm not sure. It looks like maybe one of them has been rehabbed, but that would be a really cool place to have like an office or a studio or something. Maybe RM Transit will get a studio overlooking the rails at some point in the future. You can see this giant signal bridge here, and a bit of an interesting fact about the Georgetown South project, which I discussed in a previous video. That's that new development there, and that's the crossways behind it. A bit of an interesting element is that almost every structure, if not every structure, on the Georgetown South, so these signal bridges and this pedestrian bridge we're coming up to, they're all designed for electrification. So the clearances and everything should all be totally good, which is great when we actually start putting up wires. I must say, a lot of the development along the rail path here, particularly behind me, is just super cool. There's a lot of brick and older buildings, and it's just awesome. Right next to the railway, high frequency service, close to a major transit hub, subway service and streetcar service as well. It's really great. Got some more townhouses over here at the end of the street. It's really nice, and even some bikes parked here. And above us we have the Wallace Avenue pedestrian bridge, and this really cool kind of narrow building here that's right next to it, that I believe has a community center in it, but don't quote me. Oh, feathery friends, let's maybe go another way. I'd rather not be attacked. Let's go this way. Cool. That's... God. Jesus. This building here is really cool. You have windows overlooking the rail path in front of me, but also the rail corridor here. And it's got an industrial feel, but being right next to a transit corridor, it's just really awesome. Let's take a look. Some residential space across the corridor over there, and this fencing actually looks pretty good. This fencing, the like chicken wire or whatever, not a huge fan of, but this like thick black mesh, it looks really nice actually. And there's a lot of trees along here, which is super pleasant as well. Now I'm standing at basically the end of Bloor station right now. A few Up Express trains have gone by, a few GO trains, and there's just something about having like a transportation corridor next to you, not a highway, like a rail corridor, that's so cool because it's very animated, and I hate that term, I'm sorry, but seeing the trains kind of go back and forth, it's really nice. And if you had an office here that's kind of overlooking the rail corridor, it would be really cool because you would be able to really, see the trains going by in the background. And I think we have one here now, so let's take a look. that is a Kitchener Line train, a short one. But yeah, that's a Kitchener Line train going by. You know it's a Kitchener Line train because it was in the easternmost track. The westernmost tracks are where the Milton Line trains come from, but yeah, not the Kitchener Line. And I think I have another one coming here, so I'm gonna flip the camera around and try to get a shot of it. You can see on the other side of the rail corridor, or you can just barely see, you can sort of make out the, oh, that's a bird's nest. Let's not get attacked by birds again today. You can see the sort of transparent sound barriers there. Not a fan, to be honest, but I think people complained and they wanted sound barriers up. I think these fences look a lot nicer. They don't get all covered in graffiti, and the kind of ivy and stuff grows on them a lot better. So I think it looks quite nice. We've got another kind of older looking industrial style building. It's 1920. That's really cool. And again, you've got some like single family housing, and you can sort of see up here, just barely, some towers. I believe those towers are roughly where the Davenport Diamond is. So if you've watched my earlier videos on the Davenport Diamond project, you'll know that that's a major elevated grade separation that's going to take the Go-Berry line, which diverges to the south of where I am right now, over the CP main line. We've got another one of these markers, Ruskin Avenue. But with the Davenport Diamond grade separation, you're going to have the potential for high frequency services on the Berry line, and you can really get a sense from here how close the Berry line actually is to the Kitchener corridor. You can see here we have these transparent sound barriers, and yeah, they're all covered in graffiti, which isn't super pleasant, but I suppose it kind of comes with the territory of, you know, having big rail corridors. And yeah, I really prefer the fences to the look of these sound walls, and I think the fences are better if you're on the trains as well. Yeah, I must say it's a really nice just nature walk you can take. It's not far from downtown Toronto, maybe like max 30 minutes on the subway. You can just get off at Dundas West TTC station, come through the GO station, and just sort of walk along here, and it's super nice. It's well used even late at night, so there's not really a wrong time to come, and it's just a cool space. I will say that in the future though, this will be really cool when you have electric trains on the Kitchener corridor and on the Up Express. Once service frequencies pick back up, you know, I think in a lot of these locations, you'll have a train passing like every 2 or 3 minutes, which will be pretty wild. That's basically subway-like frequencies, and unlike in the case of the subway, you actually have 4 tracks here. Actually room for 6, I think, with the Milton line. And so you have the potential to sort of see multiple trains passing at once and passing each other, and I think it's just a cool thing that you don't really get to see much in Toronto, especially this close to just the natural urban landscape. So we've kind of come back to where there's just fence. You've got this industrial building on the other side, and so I guess there was less complaining and they were able to just put fencing here, and it just looks so much better. It's more transparent and easier to see through, and yeah, it just makes it feel airier and lighter. I do have to say, as someone who doesn't cycle much, I'm not sure how I feel about people on e-bikes going by at like 30-40 kilometers per hour. I do think there may be a case for speed limiters, because that's crazy and probably pretty unsafe. But yeah. So this is a really cool kind of office building. I think some tech companies are located here, which is really cool. And we're kind of approaching DuPont Street, so we're almost already at the north end of this path. But yeah, this just building looks so cool. And it's like a modern office. I believe this is actually a co-working space in here, which is super awesome. So we're pulling up to DuPont Street, and let's take a look. Now, I'm certainly of the belief that DuPont is one of the more hostile streets in the old city of Toronto. There was a lot of talk about it because there was a major accident recently. And I will say this part of DuPont is slightly better. There are bike lanes, there are only 2 traffic lanes, and there's kind of a center turning lane. And I think that's nice. It's not great. The bike lanes aren't protected, which would be good to see. But overall, it's better than typical DuPont, which is a good step. Now, as you may be able to see, we're sort of diverging from the rail corridor now. We're moving off to the east, and we're about to get to the end of the rail path on the north side. So we're going to be turning around pretty soon. As it turns out, though, this kind of northern end of the rail path is right up against the West Toronto Diamond, where there's a major grade separation between the Kitchener line and the CP Toronto Midtown line. I think I can actually hear a freight train now, and I can see it just barely over the buildings in front of me. I'm not sure how well it's going to come out on camera, but it's pretty cool that you have this kind of frequent passenger service and freight trains can be crossing over it and there's no interference, which is the goal of the Davenport Diamond grade separation as well, I suppose. A Bike Share Toronto station here, which is super nice. And we have what appears to be, we've got a locomotive going through here. We have what appears to be a big map of the rail path. So up here at Caribou, we started down at Bloor Street West, and we're gonna head down to Dundas Street West. So it's not that long. It's a couple kilometers, but yeah, it looks like a total of 2 kilometers. It's a 20-minute walk to the south end, but yeah, it should be interesting. I will say I kind of like this little plaza at the end. You have a bike share station kind of right behind me here. You have a cool map, and you have this, which is super interesting. You have these diamonds, track diamonds, the same thing that was removed to create this giant grade separation, just down here on the ground, which is cool. And there's a big plaque here that I'm going to take a look at. So we're going to head back south now, and I just want to point out the Caribou Road, I think it's Caribou Road sign here. Kind of fun to try to catch all of the signs as you go down the rail path here. No, it's Caribou Avenue. Great. I messed that one up. But yeah, it's really pleasant. Lots of wildlife and stuff, and just a nice morning stroll. It's not too busy. It's great. Now, if you want the TLDR on what that plaque said, and by the way, I've come to appreciate these plaques. You should really actually give them a chance and try reading them from time to time. Sometimes there's actually surprisingly interesting stuff on them, you know, about famous people who lived in the area or about a major site that you might not realize is located nearby. Basically, this one was just saying the West Toronto Diamond was a major freight railway intersection point between Canadian National and Canadian Pacific Railways. Anyways, CP obviously still has their line crossing here, heading out to Mississauga and Milton. But now the CN line is officially a GO line, which is really cool, and maybe that tells us something about the future, that we might have more and more GO/passenger owned lines, which would be pretty great. I'm looking here through these windows at the grade separation. You can see that the Kitchener line goes in a trench here, so no real trains to be seen, but there has been a shocking number passing by, and I think that you already can get the sense when you're here just how incredible RER style service could be if it was operating all day long, because there are a ton of trains passing by. A nice little thing, there's a lot of these sort of connection points, pathways out to the street, so that if you live in the neighborhood, you can just walk over to the rail path, and instead of walking down like a residential street, you can just enjoy this nice multi-use path with all of its squirrels and wildlife and trains, and it's just wonderful. The squirrel is not really afraid of me. Another view of this industrial building over here on DuPont Street. When you think about it, it is pretty amazing the scale of passengers that could be moved on this corridor. Obviously right now trains aren't operating every couple minutes, at least not on each track. But I will say that in the future when that is happening, it will be incredible. You've got a little connection down to DuPont Street here. Another one of our metal signs. I think it's sort of worth mentioning, because you just saw it, that while the trains can be loud, of course electric trains will be quieter than the current diesel trains, as long as you're not right at a station, they pass by incredibly quickly. That was maybe 3 to 5 seconds of actual noise, and then the train was gone and there's no more noise. So it's not really that bad being next to one of these corridors, and I've lived by one in the past, and yeah, the sound is actually not a huge issue. The bell is the most audible thing on the GO trains. I will say, growing up in Vancouver where there is like a lot of nature paths, it is really refreshing to just be able to walk on something like this. And the juxtaposition of just this kind of peaceful nature path and this really high intensity transportation corridor that is most of the time pretty much silent is kind of amazing. I feel like if you're near the Railpath, should probably be upzoned. It's a really nice transportation corridor, and I actually think that, you know, if there was a place you wanted to live, this is really good, because you can walk down or cycle down to the GO station or to the subway station in probably like 5 minutes. Maybe it's a 10-minute walk, a 5-minute ride on your bike. And once you're there, you know, you can go kind of anywhere in the region really quite quickly. You can sort of start to see the scale of the towers down by Dundas West, or at least tower down by Dundas West that's being constructed. But there should be so much more density here, and it is kind of a shame that there's not more, because again, this is one of the sort of secondary transit hubs. Compared to all of the other stations in the region, and in Canada, frankly, the only one that is kind of more substantial in terms of connectivity is Union Station. And yet, of course, paths like this are nice, and that's cool, but you mainly just have townhouses, when there should be way more high-rises all around here, because we're very close to, you know, major transit infrastructure. It is cool to see a lot of people riding their bikes by. And yet another train. This one is on the Milton line, so it will be bypassing Bloor Station. I will say it's actually really refreshing to see Metrolinx running shorter trains on GO for a change. The demand isn't necessarily there right now, and they're being efficient, and that's actually something that I feel like we don't see enough of in North America. So kudos to that. And also, wow, I really like this building. It would be a great location for a future office. I'm very tempted. And it seems like as we're getting back to Bloor Station, we might see yet another train. I'm imagining it's maybe an Up Express service, but I'm actually surprised we haven't seen one going the other direction, unless I missed it when I was up at Caribou Avenue. But it seems like we do have another service that's going to be passing us. That is a massive amount of what appears to be either like a waterproofing membrane or like a landscaping cloth or something like that. It's pretty interesting. Let's walk along the platform for this section of our little journey. And yep, we have an Up Express train. It's really interesting. You can quite literally see the additional track is going to go right here. You already have the platform marked out for it. And yep, it's an Up Express service. So there must have been one that passed us when we were up way down over there. But yeah, those nice industrial buildings and a lovely up express service. Nice and early in the morning. I had to get up early to film this, so hopefully everyone appreciates the lovely quiet morning. I will say that this station isn't as good as some of the newest stations in terms of having the full canopies, because as you can see I'm on the platform and there's no canopy here. But what I will say is that it is pretty good. It's sort of an in-between step between the newest stations like Agincourt and Milliken that I've made numerous videos about on the channel, and some of the older GO stations that are literally just these sort of bus shelters here and not much else. And so I think it's nice. The platforms look good. I believe they're heated, so you don't get ice accumulating on them. Got the new development next door, and what I will say that's quite nice is, while I have been upset that the Up Express has been running less frequently, it's only been operating half-hourly, I think because of that, they have been running larger trains. So now every train has been a 3-car set. So I think they previously had enough trains to operate a full service with 3-car sets, but I think the unreliable Nippon Sharyo DMUs, unfortunate, meant that they could basically only run 2-car trains and maybe a few 3-cars. What would be really cool is if they ordered some more cars so that they could just operate all 3-car sets, 15-minute service. More cool buildings. The Canadian Red Cross is apparently here. So what I will say is that while it is a little unfortunate that they either seem to be able to run 15-minute service or 3-car service, it would be nice if maybe they could acquire some more trains from Smart, or, I don't know, get Nippon Sharyo to produce some more cars, or buy a totally different train set, but get a few sets, and then just operate full 90-meter trains all the time, because we clearly need the capacity. You can actually see the edge of the future high platform here. And this is the future trackway that I'm standing in. So when they add a 4th track, this is where it's going to go. So now we're here at Bloor Street and the sun is finally up, which is nice. We've got a staircase, I think, that goes down to the sidewalk. Yep, pretty nice. And yeah, we've got Bloor Station here. And another one of these wooden decked bridges, which is kind of cool. You had the similar thing at DuPont. I will say, so this is where the bridge for that 4th track is supposed to be. And I am a little skeptical that you're going to be able to fit a train through here. This looks really tight, but maybe someone with more knowledge than me can comment down below. Here we have Bloor Street West, and might just be able to make out in the distance the 1 at Bloor and Yonge. So we are quite far west. So sort of in the foreground here, you can see this is the future 4th track bridge. You've got the other bridges off to the other side. I believe there's a total of 4 tracks that go through right now, but only 3 of them are platform tracks. The one that's furthest to the west, it's kind of way over there, is a Milton Line track, and it doesn't have a platform and probably won't get a platform at the station, and so this additional track is needed to operate kind of your full service. We have our sign for Bloor here, which is pretty nice to see. It means we are slowly making our way down to Dundas Street. start to get these metal structures on the section south of Bloor. I guess they're public art, maybe, of some sort. I'm not really 100% sure. But more kind of industrial and single-family housing here. Again, the density is not high enough here. Some signs about poison ivy. So I didn't really say it before, even though I probably should have, and yes, I'm wearing my hood. It's very crisp out. Should I make more vlogs? Do you guys like this type of video? Let me know in the comments down below. I also forgot to mention that I've seen a number of clean air vehicles, as they would call them in California today, and it's been pretty cool. I saw a couple TTC electric buses, Proterra ones, so that was cool. I guess I didn't realize that they were operating on routes in this general vicinity, but yeah, they're quiet, nice. I need to get on one. I still haven't, which is criminal for me. I also saw a Tier 4 Go locomotive, which is pretty cool to see. The Tier 4s were originally operating as paired sets with standard locomotives, non-Tier 4s, and so seeing a Tier 4 operating by itself, so nice. Tier 4s have quite low emissions for diesel locomotives, and so seeing them is really cool, but all of the kind of emission control systems, etc., make them really complicated, which is part of why getting them running was kind of difficult. Now you know. This is sort of unusual for the Railpath, and if I have any criticism, I would say there's not enough spaces like this where you have sort of like, I don't know what to call these benches, tables. You're meant to sit on them. We don't have enough of this, and I think more kind of public spaces and benches and sitting areas would be nice. I mean, overall, the Railpath, while it is nice, it certainly doesn't feel high budget, like, for example, the High Line feels in New York, where you have the tracks still sort of embedded, you have these benches that are kind of flowing in and out of the ground. The West Toronto Railpath is nice, but it is certainly not the High Line. I'm going to turn back here and just take a look at the crossways so you can get a sense how far south we are. The other thing, I guess, that's sort of surprising about the West Toronto Railpath, this is a really cool building, too. Just so you know. And we've got another metal structure and a cool signal bridge. And some residential/industrial space over here. And more industrial over here. This is very cool. It's a candy store. One of the things you might not know about the West Toronto Railpath is it's kind of crazy short. Again, it is only 2 kilometers long, and you can walk it in like 20-30 minutes end to end if you're walking quickly. And yeah, I really do hope it gets extended in the future. Supposedly it may get connected up to a path adjacent to the Barrie line with the Davenport Diamond project, and that would be really cool. But I'd also just like to see it extended really far south and ideally really far north. It would be so cool, like so cool, to have a rail path that went near to Union Station and from there all the way to, let's say, Mount Dennis, where you could get on the crosstown. That would be my official favorite walk in the city, just being able to walk along the rail corridor for a really long distance, you know, passing a couple stations, and just appreciating the sights and appreciating the train services going by, appreciating the transit at both ends. And there we go, we actually have a streetcar going over the bridge. That's, I don't know if that's College or Dundas. I think it's Dundas. But there's actually a cool little area here that'll show you that you can kind of stand at and get a pretty good vantage point over the rail corridor. You can sort of see it here. It's this sort of semicircular platform you can stand on. It's nice. And there's a tree in the center, which is also very nice. And a little connection path to the neighborhood. And yes, this cool industrial building, which is awesome. This would be such a cool place to put some high-density housing. It would be a great place for me to live in the future and have a live camera going. And here we have an Up Express service headed to Union. Now, if you're wondering what all of this is, it's a Nestle production facility, so like a chocolate factory, which is cool, neat. I like how the plant life is a little more sparse at this side of the railpath, and you can really see through to the tracks, which means that this is probably the best place to sort of rail fan, especially since you have the Dundas Bridge, Dundas or College, whichever one it is, that you could hypothetically be standing on and looking down on trains as well, which would be nice. I will say I definitely would love to see, kind of more investment in this path in the future, enhancing it, building some more seating and other nice amenities, maybe adding a few more bike share stations. Got another big signal bridge up close. And another one of those metal structures up here. But I would love to see it invested in more in the future and potentially extended, as I mentioned before. I just think it would be a really nice amenity to have, and you've already got a sense of how good it could be, because this section is really cool. It just needs to be enhanced and made a little nicer. We've got a streetcar going over the bridge there. And then also extended. It would be so cool, even if it just went to Liberty Village, and then maybe from there to, again, Mount Dennis, or maybe even Weston. It would make for a real useful connection. Right now, the connection is okay, but going from Dundas or College, whichever it is, all the way to DuPont, it's nice, but it is not massive. There are other streets. You could take Shaw Street or some other places to travel north-south, so extending this should really be a high priority. And, if I recall correctly, this is kind of maybe a grassroots or a non-profit thing that set this path up. And I really think that this could be something that Metrolinx could sort of, not necessarily take over, but fund, just as a great piece of, transportation infrastructure, because there is great connections to the rail stations, which means, some built-in passengers connect up the stations, and people will ride their bikes and walk to the stations along the path. Now, that does bring up the point that there needs to be way more bike parking at Dundas West. I don't even know if there is any serious indoor bike parking there, but there needs to be a big indoor bike parking room. But it could be a really cool opportunity for Metrolinx, so maybe they'll think about that sometime in the future. Got the bridge here, and the dead end at the end of the West Toronto Railpath. It doesn't continue further beyond here, though I guess in the future, if it gets extended, this is where it would go, sort of along the rail corridor. Okay, so it has warmed up a bit. I hope everyone enjoyed taking this little trip with me out to the Railpath, getting up early, checking out some trains, checking out some railway right-of-way and infrastructure. If you want to see more videos like this, again, leave a comment down below. Bright, so bright. But yeah, that's the West Toronto Railpath, and thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one. Okay, so I know I said I'd see you in the next one, but look at this. You can see where potentially additional tracks could be added here. There's room here, and there's room here. So there's definitely enough room here for the Railpath to extend south, and that would be so cool. Let's go up and catch a streetcar now. Got another bike share station here at the south end, which is nice to see. And another map of the Railpath, though unfortunately it has been vandalized.